guys, Navarro Gaming here, and today I want to talk about Final Fantasy 16. There's a lot of controversy online right now. People going, this is not a Final Fantasy game. And well, I want to say they're all full of crap. I want to cuss, but I'll try to keep myself PG for now. If you liked the content, dear God, I have to throw this at you because YouTube wants me to. Please throw me a like, subscribe, hit that bell. It helps me out. You know, that's how YouTube gets you to like me. But I want to talk about Final Fantasy 16. You know, there's a lot of people out here that want to go, Final Fantasy 16 is not a real game. And what makes Final Fantasy a Final Fantasy game? Now, I was born in the 1990s. Final Fantasy came out before I was even born. Now, when I was 7, I came in contact, going to move with my dad, came in contact with a PlayStation 1. So the Final Fantasy games I had access to, because my dad owned them, was Final Fantasy 7 and 8. And loved both of them. But I still went back and played the original 6 on the NES and the Super NES, the NES and SNES. And, you know, loved the series, loved the story, loved the game mechanics. And as you know, I've been with this franchise growing up. And coming through the years, well, what can I say about impressive games? I've loved them all. Like, there's a lot of people that didn't like 13 because they felt like the character design was poorly written. I mean, if they want to go that far, they might as well call 8's character design poorly written, because Lightning and Squall kind of both have the same mindset. Though Lightning becomes a little more gruff by the end of the story, while Squall becomes a little more soft-hearted and for the love of his life. But we're not going to go into character, diving right now. But so people want to say Final Fantasy 16 is not a Final Fantasy game. Well, let's look at why. People think because has a more free-flowing combat now. It's not take turn. There's no active time gauge. Well, I don't ever think that that's the product of, technology, game mechanics, like what they wanted to bring you. I mean, the gameplay of what Final Fantasy is right now has always been the objective of Square Enix, Squaresoft. This is going back to 7, like when they first started introducing cinematics into the game. This is the kind of fighting they wanted us to be able to feel and enjoy. And I think the gameplay is very, very well made. It's not oversimplified and it's not too complex. Because let's go with what makes a Final, I guess let's move into the subject of what makes a Final Fantasy game. So normally it's a very strong, narratively driven story that brings a group of heroes together in their quest to save the world, most of the time, or as realm. Some of them aren't always about the world. Okay, well, 16 right out the gate throws you into a narrative that doesn't let you divert. And now I'm only 9 hours into the game, and it's just now starting to open up how very stereotypically most Final Fantasies start out. Is that it's very narrative driven, very one-sided objectives that you can do to a certain point, and then it opens up and gives you more freedom to explore, continue on with the story, and do whatnot. So that's the next part, is an open world setting. That's another feature of Final Fantasy game. It's very, normally has a big open world setting. Except for one exception of that. And that would have been, two actually, if you really want to go into it. There's two exceptions to that rule that comes into mind on the whole open world setting, and that was Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy 13. So Final Fantasy X gives you a lot of locations to go between with a bunch of smaller maps. And then there's more details to find, but it wasn't one solid open world where you could just seamlessly travel through. And Final Fantasy 13, same thing. You transport between two different, I think actually two different worlds. I think you go to the moon and then you go back to the planet. It's been a minute since I played, so I can't fully remember, but you're not allowed to just seamlessly travel wherever you want. You have to eventually teleport to another section to do something. Well, then that's what Final Fantasy 16 is. It's kind of like 10. We have this big open world, but we gotta travel to certain spots in this kingdom. Sure, we don't get to see everything, but we have a very detailed world and a very expansive place to search. And that allows for a big open world in a sense. Sure, we have smaller segments of traveling, but I don't know, the most recent spot, if you check out my streams, the most recent spot I got to, it was pretty big and open. And it took me a good, probably just to traverse where I needed to for the storyline, a good 8 minutes. And that's a pretty decent amount of travel time in the game to be able to fight, do whatever, and explore. And that was not even me exploring. That was literally me just walking to my objective, which, mind you, I want to take the time to explore this world, do the side quests, do everything else. But I also want to keep my content with my viewers interactive, and that's kind of hard if I'm going off doing my own thing. So we have what makes Final Fantasy game is so far narrative, open world. Let's move on to part 3, combat system. The combat system is changed, it's ever evolving. We could, people go, oh, they got rid of the take turn combat system. Well, they got rid of that back after 10, and technically even before that, because we had Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, and that game came out on the PSP, and you were able to move around and fight. Like, you had a battle arena, like you ran into a monster or you hit whatever, walked, and then the action engagement happened, and you were in a fighting arena, but it played a lot like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, except for that one didn't give you a boundary to fight within. Well, if you ran so far away, obviously you fleed the fight, but it didn't give you a boundary to fight it. But it still had the same core mechanics of fighting, where you were walking around, able to attack and use your magics and whatnot. And this is the thing they've always wanted to go towards, because let's keep the ball rolling. Final Fantasy XI, their MMORPG, that's not take turn. That's built a lot like World of Warcraft, League of Legends, with skill cooldowns and this free flow style of combat. Well, come 12, they changed it again. It still was what's called an active time gauge, and that's what 10 was. That's what 8 was. We changed the active time gauge a while ago, and that's what 13 was. And then 14, again, their next online expansion, a bigger, better thing, better graphics, more offering, and that's been their current online platformer so far. But the combat's always ever evolving. So the fact that the combat's come to this live action fighting now is what Square Enix has always wanted, where we've seen the progression get there. But I want my take turn combat back. Well, I'm sorry, you can't freeze, and you have to be more actively thinking about what you're doing in a fight. But if you want that, Square Enix has games to offer you. They have Octopath Travelers, coming out on the Switch, PS5, all that, and they have 2 games of that now, I'm pretty sure. And then if you want another game, Brave the Default series. I love those. I played on my 3DS. Sadly, I think Brave the Default is Nintendo exclusive, but hey, I think it's a great way to get you to go pick up a Switch or go pick up a 3DS and jump into that market. Now, a 3DS might not be so great because it would have the same eShop as the Wii U, and that's closed down now, which is sad, but there's still a physical game market there. And, managing your Switch games is almost the same thing as managing a DS game, so get a little carry case for that and you're all good. But I play those games on my 3DS, the Bravely Default series, and it's a wonderful series. Great narrative, open world, take-turn combat. Hey, it looks like you got exactly what you wanted right over there. But the only thing is it doesn't have that branded title of Final Fantasy. Now, you may not like what I have to say right now, and too bad. But moving forward, so the three elements we have so far: open world, narrative, combat mechanics. What else makes a Final Fantasy game? Well, anything, any game has character design, building, and all that, and you can't say that's a core mechanic to Final Fantasy. That's in every game. Most games, because let's take Monster Hunter for an example. You really don't need to character build on your character while hunting monsters, but they actually even put that in World. They put a little character building for you with the narrative they drew through the whole hunting phase and figuring out what's going on in the new world, as they called it. And that's just another. That's just part of the good narrative and storytelling. So you can't count that as a mechanic. What mechanic? You could say what mechanic they took away was in the combat and their magic system. We've had some Final Fantasy games where we don't have magic, or magic's very limited, and that's what this game is. It's they made a narrative the magic's based on the narrative of that people have certain attunements. Some people are attuned with fire, some people are attuned with water, and if you notice, people using magic throughout the beginning of the game, they're using crystals, and that's people that probably can't use magic, or they can't use that type of magic. Because we see at the very beginning of 16, there's a guy, holds his hand over the fire, water comes out of his hand and puts out the fire. So he obviously was attuned with water magic. Now, we haven't got to see the icon of water yet, but if I had to take any guess based on Final Fantasy experience, it's probably Leviathan. Leviathan's always been the water, summoning god, whatnot, all that. The only time we got a different water one, and even then they weren't even considered water, and they were actually considered a status ailment. And there was back in Final Fantasy VIII, the Garden Fighters, and that was Siren. Siren was the only other one to use kind of water attack because still had a tidal wave kind of hit. But but they're not going to be considered water. Otherwise, we haven't had any other water. But we've had games where certain people are attuned to certain magics. If you play Final Fantasy 12, upon doing the skill tree in that game to attune for not only weapons, armor, you have to pick what kind of magic you want. And no one can unlock the whole board. So you have to sign and choose for your team and what you want who to do, healing magic, black magic, red magic, all that. The classes are still there, it's just that I think in that game there's only white magic and black magic. But they still have classes there, but it's just built differently. So same thing with Final Fantasy 13. Its class system was built differently. We had Synergists, which did the buffing. They were the buffing class. We had the Saboteurs, which were the debuffing class. We had the Ravengers, which were the magic class. We had what was the name? There was one for Assault, and then I think there was a guard form, someone for being defense. There was, it added a unique game style that people didn't like because it was a big change up from what they know. 10 and 12 were kind of similar because they had the attack magic items, they had the standard, command prompt that we got used to. Now, I mean, 13 still had that command prompt kind of, but again, it changed because now we had a new class system. But people didn't like that because 12 had a different class system, and then if you bought the new Zodiac, that changed everything too on the boards. Like I remember playing Final Fantasy 12 back on the PS2, and everyone was the same. They had one board, and then you just had to scatter off. They all had a different starting points, and then you had to scatter off and find your stuff that you needed to. But Zodiac changed that to where everyone gets their Zodiac board, and it changes all the boards. And it's like what was called the international version back then. Just like Final Fantasy X had an international version, which gave us gave us the Dark Aeons. But now I'm getting off topic. Let's reel it back into Final Fantasy 16. I mean, we have a great narrative here. We have so far what I think is amazing overarching story. Upon a person dealing with a lot of grievances and has to get past them and find new meaning to life. I mean, that's the most tragic character story arc. I don't know what you want them to do. I mean, sadly, how long storytelling's been alive and everything else, we're in a recycling bin now. It's hard to make a completely original character, but we can still make someone more original enough to where they're not exactly the same as this person, but they're not completely different. They're right here. They're in their own category, but they're similar because you just can't. Story building, we've been alive for so long. Storytelling's been around for thousands of years. Eventually, just like music, not gonna lie, we have so many strums, beats, notes, and all that, but eventually we're gonna go through all the patterns, and eventually stuff's gonna get recycled or reused or slightly modified. There'll be maybe someone figures out how to double up a beat in a single spot, but it's still the same beat as before, but it's just have some slight variance, which makes it sound ever so slightly different. But take Dragon Force for example. If you listen to half their music, I can hear through the Fire and Flames, or at least the riffs and everything that they use in half their songs. So Daft Punk's a good example of that too. If you listen to, they're techno. They've talked about it. They have a set beat, or a set tempo, and you can't they have made original songs and original beats, but it's also recycled at the same time. I don't know what to go more into for this world. The three major key points that would make up any game, is their atmosphere, their mechanics, and their narrative. People want to say it's lazy character building, but I don't think so. It's very detailed for crafting this world, especially with the speech. They're taking Game of Thrones times, however you want to correlate it to, medieval sense. And I find the speech pattern very, elegantly done. And this character, the way they express their feelings, the sounds, these voice actors have brought life to this character. And I don't see how it's bad character design. Because, there's a lot of plot twists. There's still more. This character is going to be going through, he's going through some hardships. And we can see that. We can feel that. And I haven't, not gonna lie, I played 15 and I love 15, but when Noctis is in pain because of hearing his father died, not gonna lie, I could not feel that pain. But Clive after his brother dies, the pain is there. You can hear it in his voice. You can see it in the expressions they put on him. You can see this gentle soul crumble and turn into a man driven by one force at the moment. And that's great character building, especially as now he has to either soften back up or overcome that, or cope with the loss of his brother. And I know it's so far, like, I was at a story building. It's amazing too. Is like we've seen like 5 different kingdoms within the first like 5 hours of the game. And you can like even just in those small bits that we've seen so far, not even fully exploring these kingdoms, you can see the personality differences, the culture difference of these kingdoms and people that reside in it. I mean, that's some pretty detailed character building, especially for an overarching world. I mean, you go back to Final Fantasy VII, and we had an expansive world, but there was very few NPCs. It was just needed what you needed. Now we have a world. I'm curious to see, like, 'cause right now we've seen like 5 wars, and that's like just like the beginning of the game. It throws you right in there. I want to know what the combat's gonna be like in one of these wars. Well, I don't think I have any more points of what makes a Final Fantasy game, because when it comes down to mechanics, that's going to vary from game to game. There's not something we can say what certain mechanics make a Final Fantasy game, except for the only one that you could say that's been constant throughout the years has been a command prompt, but they got rid of that in 15, and they'd slowly been moving away from that anyways. I mean, 7 was the last one to use it, but that's because they were doing a remake. But even then, they changed the combat. It's not take turn. It was free flow with a command prompt, which reminds me of another game Square Enix made. It's also a love child of Disney. It's called Kingdom Hearts. And I love that franchise. But that's always been a free form flow fighting and command prompt game. So, I mean, Square Enix has always been moving in this direction. And I mean, you're either going to love the games for what they are and follow Square Enix vision, or you're going to be stuck in your ways saying that these games are no longer Final Fantasy games when they are. This is an original world. This is an original story. This is an original gameplay, and it's more accessible to newer people. Like, I remember my dad, he loved Final Fantasy, but I remember trying to teach him how to play Final Fantasy 13, and the combat system had gotten so convoluted, he couldn't keep up. Like, the last Final Fantasy game he was able to enjoy and play was Final Fantasy X. He couldn't even play 12 because of the whole free flow moving with the command prompt, with the active time gauge. He just couldn't. My dad's had a head injury and he's a little slower for that. And so, but like, I feel like he could struggle, but still would be able to play this more easily than he was able to play Final Fantasy 12 or even 13. I feel like for his age, a man in his 50s, going close to his 60s, and not the biggest gamer, but liked video games, could jump in and play this game, which is supposed to be more accessible to everyone. And I'm sorry that it's not the challenge you want, or it's not the style you like, but that's not for us to decide, really. That's for Square Enix to take their envisionments and make for us. This is their creation, this is their world, and I mean, whether or not you like it or not, you're gonna like it or not. That's just how it is. And we're along for the ride. And you're either gonna support them or you're not. And I choose to support them because I love Square Enix and I don't think they've done anything wrong. I think they've made a beautiful game for what it was. And if you guys want to see me, I will start explaining in my live streams why this is a beautiful game. So come and join me, commentate, prove me wrong so I can show you why I'm right in the game. That's all I have to say on this subject. Please leave some comments and let's talk, let's discuss this. Find out why you think this game is crap. And that's Devoured Gaming. I'll talk to you devils later.